Derek's voice cut through the morning briefing like a knife through silk. "Fazer, we need to talk about your uniform compliance." I looked up from my sales tablet, confused. 23 employees stood in our Monday huddle at Meridian Electronics, the biggest tech retailer in Dallas. Every single one of them turned to stare at me. My uniform. I touched my navy blue polo shirt, standard issue, perfectly pressed. "What's wrong with it?" Derek crossed his arms, his regional manager badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. That smirk I'd seen 100 times before spread across his face. "The headscarf. It's not part of our approved uniform. You'll need to remove it before you're allowed on the sales floor today." The room went dead silent. My hand instinctively went to my hijab, a simple navy blue scarf that matched my uniform perfectly. I'd been wearing it every single day for the 8 months I'd worked here. Every single day. "I've been wearing my hijab since I was hired," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "It's never been an issue before." "Well, it's an issue now." Derek tapped his clipboard. "New corporate image standards. We need uniformity across all locations. The scarf has to go." Several co-workers shifted uncomfortably. My friend Jennifer opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it. Marcus looked down at his shoes. But instead of arguing, instead of crying, instead of doing what Derek clearly expected, I smiled. A small, calm smile that gave absolutely nothing away. Something flickered across Derek's face. Confusion. Maybe even a hint of worry. He didn't understand why I wasn't backing down or getting emotional. He had no idea what was coming. "We'll see about that, Derek," I said quietly. Inside, humiliation burned through my chest like acid. But I refused to let him see it. Not here. Not in front of everyone. This was the last time Derek would make me feel small. My name is Fazer Rahman. I'm 26 years old, and this is the story of how one man's discrimination became his biggest mistake. 6 months earlier, everything had been different. I'd landed the job at Meridian Electronics after 3 rounds of interviews. The store manager, Patricia, had been warm and professional. She'd asked about my sales experience, my tech knowledge, my customer service philosophy. Not once did she mention my hijab. "We love your energy, Fazer," Patricia had said during my final interview. "When can you start?" I'd worn my hijab to every single interview. Navy blue, professional, perfectly coordinated with business attire. If it was going to be a problem, someone would have mentioned it then. They didn't. My first 3 months were phenomenal. I consistently hit 120% of my sales targets. Customers loved me. I could explain complex tech in simple terms, match people with exactly what they needed, and close deals without being pushy. By month 4, I was Employee of the Month. My photo went up on the wall by the entrance, hijab and all. Patricia praised my work ethic in team meetings. Even the district manager, Susan, sent me a congratulatory email. Then Derek transferred to our region. Derek Morrison, 42 years old, 3 years as regional manager, known for turning around underperforming stores. What that really meant, I'd learn later, was cutting corners and pushing people out who didn't fit his narrow vision of what a salesperson should look like. He walked into our store on a Tuesday morning in October, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning everything like a health inspector looking for violations. His gaze landed on me, lingered on my hijab, then moved on without a word. I should have known then. The first week Derek was around, small things started changing. Suddenly, my schedule got cut from 38 hours to 28. When I asked Patricia about it, she looked uncomfortable. "Derek's redistributing hours based on sales performance," she said, not meeting my eyes. But my sales performance was top 3 in the store. Everyone knew it. The next week, my prime Saturday shifts disappeared. Saturdays were when serious buyers came in, people ready to spend money on home theater systems, gaming setups, high-end laptops. Those were the shifts where top performers made their numbers. Now I was working Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. Dead zones. "Derek says we need to give other team members opportunities," Patricia explained, her voice apologetic. I watched those Saturday shifts go to Brandon, mediocre sales, mediocre attendance, but he wore the standard uniform exactly as Derek preferred. Clean-cut, corporate, forgettable. When I tried to discuss it with Derek directly, he was always too busy. "Send me an email," he'd say, brushing past me. I sent 4 emails over 2 weeks. Never got a single response. Then came the coaching sessions. Derek started pulling me aside after shifts, notebook in hand, pointing out supposed mistakes. My greeting wasn't enthusiastic enough. I spent too long with customers. I wasn't pushing the extended warranties hard enough. None of it was true. I had customer satisfaction scores to prove it. 5-star reviews. Repeat customers who specifically asked for me. But Derek didn't care about evidence. "You need to improve, Phaser," he'd say, his tone dripping with condescension. "Not everyone's cut out for retail." The implication was clear. The problem wasn't my performance. It was me. I started documenting everything. Every cut hour, every reassigned shift, every coaching session. I kept emails, printed schedules, saved customer reviews. Something told me I'd need proof. But I didn't realize how bad it would get. The breaking point came on a Monday morning in March. Derek had called the team meeting earlier than usual. Everyone was tired, clutching coffee cups, checking phones. I stood near the back, ready for another week of reduced hours and sideways glances. That's when Derek made his announcement. "Corporate has new uniform standards," he said, projecting authority he didn't actually have. "Effective immediately, all employees must adhere to approved uniform guidelines only. No modifications, no additions, no exceptions." He looked directly at me. "Phaser, that means the headscarf has to go." The words hit like a physical slap. Jennifer gasped. Marcus's jaw dropped. Even Brandon looked uncomfortable. "That's not a uniform modification," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts. "It's religious attire. Protected under federal law." Derek's smile was thin and cruel. "Company policy supersedes personal preferences. If you want to work on the sales floor, you follow the dress code. Simple as that. This isn't a preference." "I'm not debating this, Phaser." He cut me off. "You have 2 options. Remove the scarf or clock out and go home. Your choice." 23 pairs of eyes watched, waiting to see if I'd fold. Every fiber of my being wanted to scream, to throw his clipboard across the room, to call him exactly what he was, a bigot using policy as a weapon. Instead, I smiled. That same calm, controlled smile. "I'll be right back," I said. I walked to the break room, pulled out my phone, and took photos of the schedule, the employee handbook, and Derek's announcement written on the whiteboard. Then I clocked out. Not because he won. Because I needed to build my case. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out every piece of documentation I'd collected over the past 6 months. Cut hours. Schedule changes. Coaching sessions. Customer reviews. Sales numbers. The pattern was undeniable. From the moment Derek arrived, my treatment changed. Not because of performance. My numbers were consistently excellent. Not because of attendance. I hadn't missed a single shift. Not because of complaints. Customers loved me. The only thing that changed was Derek's presence. And the only thing that made me different from Brandon, Jennifer, Marcus, and everyone else Derek favored was my hijab. I opened my laptop and started researching. Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act. Religious discrimination. Reasonable accommodation. Employer liability. Everything I read confirmed what I already knew. What Derek did wasn't just wrong. It was illegal. By midnight, I had a timeline documenting 6 months of systematic discrimination. Every email I'd sent that went unanswered. Every shift cut without justification. Every coaching session based on subjective nonsense instead of measurable performance. And now, the explicit demand to remove my religious attire. I wasn't just going to report Derek to corporate HR. I was going to bury him. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Instead, I went to the Texas Workforce Commission and filed a formal complaint for religious discrimination. Then I contacted the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and started the federal complaint process. Both agencies took my documentation seriously. Very seriously. By Wednesday, I'd retained an employment attorney named Sarah Chen. She reviewed my evidence and nearly smiled. "This is textbook religious discrimination," Sarah said, spreading my documents across her desk. "And your documentation is pristine. Most clients come to me with vague feelings and no proof. You've built an airtight case." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we send a formal complaint to Meridian Corporate. Not the store, not Derek, straight to their general counsel. We outline the discrimination, cite the violations, and reference the pending EEOC complaint. Then we wait." "Wait for what?" Sarah's smile was sharp. "Wait for them to realize how much this is going to cost them if they don't fix it immediately." The letter went out Thursday morning. Professional, precise, devastating. It detailed every incident, every policy violation, every failure to accommodate. It attached my documentation like exhibits in a trial. And it copied the EEOC case number at the bottom. By Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Dallas area code. "Hello. Ms. Rahman. This is Leonard Hoffman from Meridian Electronics corporate legal team. We received correspondence from your attorney regarding allegations of workplace discrimination." His voice was careful, measured, scared. "Yes," I said simply. "We take these allegations very seriously. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss this matter and explore resolution options. Would you be available Monday morning?" I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. "I'll have my attorney contact you to schedule," I said, then hung up. That's when I knew. They weren't calling to defend Derek. They were calling to contain the damage. Because religious discrimination lawsuits don't just cost money. They cost reputation, stock value, customer trust. And I had them cold. Monday morning, I walked into Meridian Electronics corporate headquarters in downtown Dallas wearing my navy blue hijab, a professional blazer, and the confidence of someone holding all the cards. Sarah Chen walked beside me, briefcase in hand, heels clicking against marble floors. We were escorted to a conference room on the 15th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. A long mahogany table dominated the space. Waiting for us were 4 people: Leonard Hoffman, corporate counsel; Rebecca Torres, chief human resources officer; Martin Shu, vice president of retail operations; and a woman I didn't recognize, taking notes. No Derek. No Patricia. No store-level management. This was the big leagues. "Ms. Rahman, thank you for coming," Leonard began, his tone professionally apologetic. "We want to assure you that Meridian Electronics has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind." Sarah didn't let me respond. "Then you'll want to explain how my client endured 6 months of systematic religious discrimination under Regional Manager Derek Morrison's supervision, culminating in an explicit demand to remove her hijab or lose her employment." She slid a bound document across the table. Our formal complaint, complete with exhibits. Rebecca Torres opened it and started reading. Her expression darkened with every page. "I wasn't aware of the extent of these incidents," she said carefully. "That's because Derek Morrison ignored 4 separate emails from my client requesting to discuss scheduling concerns," Sarah replied. "And because store manager Patricia Colwell was apparently too intimidated to escalate the obvious discrimination occurring under her watch." Martin Shu leaned forward. "Ms. Rahman, I want to apologize on behalf of Meridian Electronics. What you've described, if accurate, is completely unacceptable and contrary to our values." "It's not if accurate," I said, speaking for the first time. My voice was calm but firm. "It's documented fact. 6 months of evidence. 23 witnesses. And a clear pattern of retaliation after I refused to compromise my religious practice." The room went quiet. Leonard cleared his throat. "We'd like to propose a resolution. Immediate reinstatement to your position with full back pay for missed hours. Transfer to a different store outside Derek Morrison's region. And a formal written apology. Sarah didn't even blink. Not enough. What would you consider appropriate resolution? Rebecca asked. Sarah ticked off points on her fingers. Fullback pay calculated at Phaser's average weekly hours prior to Derek's arrival, 38 hours, not the reduced 28. Compensation for emotional distress. A formal investigation into Derek Morrison's conduct with disciplinary action up to and including termination. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for all regional and store managers. A clear written policy protecting religious accommodation. And a confidential settlement amount we'll discuss privately. The corporate team exchanged glances. Give us a moment, Leonard said. They stepped out of the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them huddling, phones out, typing frantically. How do you feel? Sarah asked me quietly. Like I'm watching someone finally take me seriously, I said. 15 minutes later, they returned. We can agree to most of those terms, Leonard said. We'll need to discuss the settlement amount, but we're prepared to move forward immediately on the investigation and policy changes. And Derek Morrison? I asked. Martin Shu's expression was grim. He's being placed on immediate administrative leave pending the investigation. If the findings confirm what you've documented, his employment will be terminated. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was close. Over the next 2 hours, we negotiated. Sarah was relentless, pushing for every protection, every dollar, every policy change. I sat quietly, letting her work, occasionally adding details when needed. By early afternoon, we had a framework. They'd draft formal agreements and send them by end of week. As we stood to leave, Rebecca Torres approached me directly. Ms. Rahman, I want you to know this isn't what Meridian stands for. What Derek did was wrong, and we're going to make it right. I looked her in the eye. Then make sure it never happens to anyone else. She nodded. We will. Walking out of that building, I felt 10 pounds lighter. How did we do? I asked Sarah once we reached the parking garage. She grinned. We crushed them. They know they screwed up, and they know you have the documentation to prove it. They'll agree to everything we asked for because fighting this would cost them 10 times more. So what happens now? Now we wait for the formal offer. Review it carefully. Sign if it's acceptable. And then you decide what you want to do next. I already knew what I wanted. I wanted Derek gone. I wanted every other employee protected. I wanted to go back to work without fear. And I wanted to do it wearing my hijab. The investigation moved quickly. Within days, corporate HR interviewed 20 employees from our store. Jennifer told them about the schedule cuts. Marcus confirmed the coaching sessions. Even Brandon admitted he'd received my Saturday shifts without justification. Patricia, the store manager, broke down during her interview. She confessed that Derek had pressured her to phase out employees who didn't fit his image. She'd been too afraid of losing her own job to push back. That conversation was recorded. Derek, meanwhile, made every mistake a guilty person makes. He deleted emails, changed stories, blamed others, insisted he was following corporate policy, a policy that didn't exist. The HR investigator found draft schedules on Derek's computer showing deliberate hour reductions for me while increasing hours for less productive employees. She found notes in his files describing me as not a good cultural fit. Cultural fit. The corporate code phrase for discrimination. 2 weeks after our corporate meeting, I received the formal settlement offer. Fullback pay, $8,400 for lost hours. Emotional distress compensation, $15,000. Reinstatement with guaranteed minimum hours. Transfer to the Highland Park location, highest volume store in the region, outside Derek's territory. Mandatory training implemented company-wide on religious accommodation. New explicit policy protecting religious attire, circulated to all 847 Meridian Electronics locations nationwide. And the confidential settlement amount Sarah negotiated, $75,000. I stared at the number, hands shaking. This is real. I asked Sarah over the phone. Very real. And Phaser. Derek Morrison was terminated this morning. Effective immediately. They're also investigating 2 other regional managers who worked under similar philosophies. I closed my eyes, let the relief wash over me. It was over. I'd won. There's one more thing, Sarah continued. They want you to consider participating in their new Diversity and Inclusion Council. Advisor role. Paid position. You'd help develop policies protecting employees from what you experienced. I didn't have to think long. Yes. Absolutely yes. Because this was never just about me. It was about every employee who'd been pushed out for not fitting someone's narrow idea of what professional looks like. Every hijabi told to choose between faith and paycheck. Every person dismissed for being different. I signed the agreement that afternoon. My first day back at the Highland Park location felt surreal. The store manager, David Park, met me at the entrance with a genuine smile and a firm handshake. Faiza, welcome to the team. We're lucky to have you. No hesitation. No side eye at my hijab. Just professional respect. The staff was incredible. Diverse, talented, supportive. Within a week, I was closing deals and hitting targets like I'd never left. Within a month, I was Employee of the Month again. My photo went up by the entrance, navy blue hijab perfectly coordinated with my uniform. This time, nobody questioned it. I heard through the grapevine that Derek was struggling to find work. Word traveled fast in retail management circles. Religious discrimination termination isn't something you can hide. Patricia kept her job but was demoted. She sent me an apology email I never responded to. Some bridges, once burned, stay burned. Jennifer transferred to Highland Park too. We became close friends. She told me she'd felt horrible during those months but didn't know how to help. You helped by telling the truth during the investigation, I said. That mattered. The Diversity Council met monthly. I worked with HR to develop real protections, not just words on paper, but enforceable policies with teeth. We created reporting mechanisms, training programs, accountability measures. Other employees started reaching out. A Sikh employee in Minnesota who'd been told to remove his turban. A Muslim employee in Arizona facing similar schedule discrimination. An Orthodox Jewish employee denied Sabbath accommodation. I helped them all navigate the system I'd learned to fight. 6 months after my return, corporate invited me to speak at the National Managers Conference. 200 regional and store managers in a Dallas hotel ballroom. I stood on that stage, wearing my navy blue hijab, and told my story. Not with anger. Not with bitterness. With clarity. Derek Morrison thought company policy was a weapon he could use against employees who didn't fit his image, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. He was wrong. Policy is a protection, not a weapon. And when managers abuse it, they don't just hurt employees, they expose the entire company to legal liability. I could see some managers shifting uncomfortably. Good. They should be uncomfortable. Religious accommodation isn't optional. It's the law. And more than that, it's the right thing to do. Your job as managers isn't to create uniformity. It's to create an environment where talented people can do their best work. Sometimes that means a hijab. Sometimes it means a turban or a yarmulke or a cross. And that's okay. The applause started slowly, then built. By the end, the entire room was standing. Afterward, a young manager approached me. She was wearing a small cross necklace. Thank you, she said quietly. I've been hiding this at work because I was afraid it would hurt my career. Don't hide, I told her. Ever. If someone has a problem with your faith, that's their problem, not yours. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about winning my case. It was about changing the culture. One policy at a time. One manager at a time. One employee at a time. A year after Derek's termination, I was promoted to Senior Sales Specialist, highest individual contributor role in the company. My pay increased 40%. My influence grew. I trained new employees, mentored struggling salespeople, and helped develop the customer service standards that became company-wide best practices. And I did it all wearing my hijab. On the anniversary of that horrible Monday morning, Jennifer and I went out for coffee. She brought it up first. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd just taken it off that day?" she asked carefully. I sipped my latte, considering. If I'd taken it off, Derek would have won. Not just against me, against every Muslim woman who came after me. He would have known he could push people out by making them choose between faith and paycheck. "You were so calm that day," Jennifer said. "I was terrified for you, but you just smiled." "I smiled because I knew something Derek didn't," I said. "He thought he had the power. But the law was on my side. Documentation was on my side. Truth was on my side. All I had to do was be patient and let him bury himself." And he did. Spectacularly. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Chen, my attorney who'd become a friend. "Saw your promotion announcement. So proud of you. Drinks this weekend?" I smiled and texted back. "Absolutely. First round's on me. Because I could afford it now. Because I'd won not just a settlement, but my dignity, my career, and my future." Derek had asked me to choose between my faith and my job. I chose both. And I made him pay for asking. 2 years later, I sat in the corporate office again. But this time, I wasn't there as a complainant. I was there as Director of Inclusion and Belonging, a position created specifically because of my case. The company had changed. Really changed. Not performative diversity statements, but concrete action. Hiring practices. Training programs. Accountability metrics. We tracked accommodation requests. We monitored manager behavior. We created safe reporting channels. And we made sure no employee would ever face what I faced. My office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Dallas. Photos on my desk showed me receiving awards, speaking at conferences, training managers. In every single photo, I wore my hijab. Sometimes I thought about Derek. Wondered if he understood what he'd lost. Wondered if he'd learned anything. Probably not. People like Derek rarely do. But I'd learned something. I'd learned that silence protects abusers. That documentation defeats discrimination. That patience and strategy beat rage every time. I'd learned that the system is broken, but it can be fixed. One policy, one case, one brave employee at a time. My phone rang. Rebecca Torres, the CHRO who'd been in that first corporate meeting. "Faiza, do you have a minute? We just received a religious accommodation request from an employee in Phoenix. Manager is pushing back. I need your advice." I grabbed my notepad. "Send me the details. I'll handle it." Because that's what I do now. I protect people the way I wish someone had protected me. I fight battles so others don't have to fight alone. And I make sure that when managers like Derek try to use policy as a weapon, they learn the same lesson he did. The system isn't on their side. The law isn't on their side. And neither am I. Last month, I was invited to speak at a Muslim women's leadership conference in Houston. 300 women filled the ballroom, most wearing hijab in every color and style imaginable. I told my story, start to finish. The discrimination, the documentation, the corporate battle, the victory. When I finished, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 22, wearing a bright teal hijab and carrying a portfolio. "I just got a job offer," she said nervously. "Retail sales. But I'm scared they'll treat me like your manager treated you. Should I take the job?" I looked at her, young, ambitious, afraid, and saw myself 3 years ago. "Take the job," I said firmly. "And if anyone ever makes you choose between your faith and your career, you document everything, you know your rights, and you fight. Because you have the law on your side. And you're not alone." Her eyes welled up. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," I said, smiling. "Just promise me you'll never hide who you are. Not for any job, not for any manager, not for anyone." She nodded, determination replacing fear. "That's the legacy I want. Not just my victory, but the courage I can give others." Because Derek Morrison thought he could break me with a dress code policy and a smirk. Instead, he broke himself. And I built something better from the pieces. The message of my story is simple. Your identity is not negotiable. Your faith is not a liability. And discrimination, no matter how it's disguised, is never legal. When someone tries to make you small, you document. You strategize. You fight smart, not loud. And you win. Not with anger. Not with violence. With patience, preparation, and the law. Derek thought he had the power because he had the title. But power isn't given by a company badge. It's earned through resilience, protected by law, and amplified by truth. I didn't just survive Derek's discrimination. I ended his career, changed company policy nationwide, and built a new career protecting others. That's not revenge. That's justice. And it tastes better than any victory I could have imagined. My name is Faiza Rahman. I'm 28 years old now. I wear my navy blue hijab to work every single day. And I'm just getting started.